I'm talking to my son, Toby Merriman. He is the Assistant Director for the Center for Virtual Expression at Southern Illinois University. And we're going to talk about AI and is it an appropriate tool in interpretation? Well, as I just said, this is a special edition of Reflections on Interpretation. And as you know, I am Tim Merriman. I'm a interpretive trainer and professional working in the field 55 years or so. My son, Toby Merriman, is the Assistant Director for the Center for Virtual Expression at Southern Illinois University, Carbondale, Illinois. Hi, son. Good to see you.
Oh, hello.
And you and I have both observed the same thing recently from our conversations.
Mhm.
When I send out any kind of advertisement about our AI and interpretation course, I'm now getting
Mhm.
some pushback from people that just go, you're betraying us. You're doing something that goes
Yep.
against every principle of heritage interpretation that exists, that
Yep.
it it's you're using technology for an evil thing. In one sense, I know that's a really extreme reaction. In the other sense, it's an honest reaction. They're kind of
Yeah.
frightened by the technology. Are
Mhm.
you seeing that at the university community?
I see it constantly, and I warned you it would happen months ago. I think it's honestly, it speaks to your life's work and Lisa's life's work, which has always been about environmentalism and cultural protection and caring about clean water and clean electricity for people. You guys have been real warriors in the campaign to educate the public and try to convince them to care about not just their natural environment, but their cultural history. So I think it took a while because it's you. But I think the anti-AI fervor is so powerful that it's eventually even reached you, and they're shocked that you would even dabble a toe in such a purely evil and absolutely meritless platform as the thing they've heard about.
Yeah, it really tracks like the Luddite movement of the 1800s related
A
to,
little, but I would want to
well,
give your people especially a lot more credit because they're right. This is a real electrical and water concern. It is a resource concern. It's all real. I just think that the notion that this technology will go away if we ignore it is short-sighted and
okay.
convenient.
Well, what we're going to do is punch through a slideshow I developed using Gamma.ai. I want everybody to know right up front that
Yeah.
I did not create this slideshow uh, through deep research or my own ability with graphics with PowerPoint, that this
Yeah.
was created by Gamma.ai. And literally, it was a response to about a 4 sentence prompt that asked it to explore the environmental impacts of AI and compare them to some other really common things in our environment, like watching streaming TV, eating a cheeseburger, driving your car, as I do, 10 miles round trip just to go to the post office, kind of the shortest trip that we do. So let's go into the slideshow and kind of talk about what it comes up with. Because I guess what I want from you is that reflection on does what this particular platform developed as a slide program, is it seem fairly accurate based on everything else you're reading from other sources?
Okay, let's look.
Now, when it says a fact-based guide, I want to tell you right up front, the first thing I put in there, as I said, this needs to be evidence-based. You need to tell me where you're getting your data. It needs to be verifiable. And the first time I did it, it gave it to me all in kilograms and liters and that sort of thing. And I went back and I said, I'd kind of like it
Ouch.
in American measures because those of us
Yeah.
in North America have, or at least in the United States, have trouble converting everything quickly,
So now all the measurements are in hot dogs and football fields.
pretty much.
Okay.
Well, this conversation is simply, as you mentioned, water is a big concern, energy itself, and how we come up with it, fossil fuel sources or clean renewable sources. And then the third concern is carbon.
One thing that immediately jumps out at me every time we look at this is all the things that human beings use electricity and water for. And yeah, and here it's going to go into detail. Yeah, okay, GBT, a pint versus, yeah, massive data center. Yeah, this is the thing is so the concerns are not wrong. The current concern that AI uses electricity, true. That it uses water, true. That we are going to need more electricity and water if we're going to have more AI, absolutely correct. The only thing I usually add to this is it's a tiny fraction compared to crypto, compared to Gmail, compared to cheeseburgers, compared to agriculture in general. It's a drop in the bucket right now, but AI is increasing. Maybe in 5 or 10 years, if AI continues on an incredible growth rate, it could catch these things. But yeah, right here, those data centers using 200 billion gallons of water, that's your Google Drive, probably. That's YouTube, that's Netflix, Amazon Prime. It's stuff that we are all using all the time. And the only thing about this AI conservation complaint that sort of surprises me is that it's so persistent. And I've worked with this technology, all these technologies, YouTube and all these things for years, and I never heard a single complaint about their environmental impacts generally. Well, agriculture, you and I both had a lot of complaints about the automobile, the oil industry, agriculture, all these things.
Well, the transition from just the internet to search engines kind of didn't have any alarm bells. It was just a
No,
real slow. Uh, Suddenly, we were using things like AOL and Yahoo, and we were looking things up. And I didn't read anything or see anything that alerted us to creating server farms to do that sort of thing. And which brings me to the other question this all brings up is, are we avoiding AI if we say, I'm just not going to use it, but I'm going to continue to use Google or Yahoo or any of these other search engines?
the answer is, of course not. The boycotts can work. We've had a couple of boycotts against the AI companies that have really worked, like subscription cancellation and things like that. And it's certainly a thing that occurs to us because it's the only thing we have right now. We are having almost no success in convincing any member of Congress or of this federal administration to care about this. In fact, the federal administration is determined to let AI run amok, which is a huge problem. And I think it's a big driver in the anti-AI sentiment. People are voicing their anger at AI, but really, if the federal government was mandating, you know, carbon neutral data centers, closed loop water cooling, local counties voting on whether they're there or not with public referendums, if it was being done in a sort of normal, public, responsible way, um, I don't think you'd see such a huge pushback against it. But kind of boycotts and complaints and citizen monitoring are all we have at the moment.
Well, and this last bullet point on this particular slide says leading providers, Google and Microsoft, are investing in closed loop cooling and recycle water systems. So clearly, all platforms are not created equal in terms of environmental impact.
Correct. And the data center awareness thing, data centers have exploded in the last 10 years, and they're about to increase even more. But there is sort of an urgent race in the AI industry. This AI company trying to outdo this one, and Grok, XAI, Elon Musk's company, is behind. They're not the leader. OpenAI and Claude have been changing spots, and Google's right up there with them. So XAI is in a hurry to catch up. And what they need to catch up is tons of compute. computer thinking power that comes from having a huge data center. And so they've built their data center, but they don't have the power infrastructure to run it. They don't have solar, they don't have wind, they don't have even the regular electrical grid can't sustain what they need. So they're running something like 30 or 35 gas turbines, and it's being very disruptive to the community that they're near. So on the one hand, you have the companies that are kind of in a better position with this technology, trying to be responsible. And you have the people who are trying to catch up, cutting corners and doing desperate, destructive and disruptive things that are making the public understandably angry.
And that was one of the reactions I got from an interpreter that was that they work with underserved communities,
Mhm.
and that some of the new server farms are being located very near underserved urban areas. Again, that's the whole thing. I mean, it's gone on for the last 100 years. We have located steel mills and all sorts of extractive industry next to communities that don't have the money or the attorneys to fight
Yeah.
and say, don't put it near me. The NIMBY thing, not in my backyard, has primarily been successful with the more affluent communities that could afford to hire the lobbyists that could fight it.
Yeah, that's why whenever I get this complaint, I prefer to actually just talk it out. I don't push back on it at all. I say you're absolutely right. We should care. We should talk about it, and you should keep an eye out for the next couple election cycles at every level. This is going to be part of people's platforms. Bernie Sanders is going hard in the anti-AI stuff, and he's being slightly boomer about it, but as usual, his heart is in the right place. He's trying to protect workers and environmental issues. And uh, my only disagreement with him is that he's treating every one of these companies, platforms, organizations as if they are one, and they're not. Some are behaving well, some are not. And so you're going to start to have options as a voter. This candidate's going to stand up and say, if you elect me, then there'll be no data centers in our county, and you can vote on that. If you elect me, then data centers will be required to make their own power so that they don't affect local electricity prices, which is the other big concern. If a data center moves into your county or your city and just taps into the power grid, then there's not enough power, then the price goes up for everybody. And so they can actually be a financial drain on the local populace if they don't set up their own power infrastructure.
Does the data you see on this side track for you? Does it look similar to what your research has shown? Other
Yes. And the other side of this is probably this is all just public data. Federal government's not helping us out much right now by we could mandate that all these data centers release their figures, release how much electricity and water they're using, release how efficient they are. Instead, you have like climatetrace.org. I don't know if you've looked at that, but that's one of Al Gore's organization that they use satellites to heat map areas. That's how they know how much heat your data center is producing because there's no public mechanism to force you to disclose what it's doing. So the public is justifiably mad and it's going to stay mad until we get kind of better information and better behavior. But these figures look right. At this time, yeah, ChatGPT query is on par with and even a little less than a Google search. It's also less than most of the other things we do on the internet. But in 2 years or 3 years, that might change. AI might become one of the major things we do with our electricity and water. So the future concern, I think, is the bigger deal.
well,
Presently, AI uses less resources than crypto, and crypto does almost nothing for us.
yeah, I don't. When I look at that previous slide, said something about 25 prompts on ChatGPT, a pint of water. I, as an interpretive person, I don't think I've ever done a session where I did 25 prompts. That would be a lot of use.
I have, but I've been It's been part of my work for the last 3 years, and I can see a lot of people doing much more than that. But the time frame is probably 50. The estimates are that even a heavy user of AI might ask it 15 to 30 questions in an hour. That's sort of the guesstimate that you can find about this. And, that's a tenth of the electricity and water they'd use if they instead chose to watch Netflix for that hour.
Yeah, and they're also comparing it to golf, and golf is an intensive user of water. And
Well,
I have to be
but
honest,
golf courses catch a lot of flack for that, and they deserve it. And they're much more of a hog.
this was developed for the military industrial community and for corporations, for crypto, for all these intensive internet digital uses. It wasn't developed for school teachers and interpreters.
Which technology?
All of AI, all of the streaming
Well,
technology.
the LLM, the sort of technology behind it, is sort of an accident from 15 years ago. Google tripped over something and thought it was useless. One of their engineers on his way out the door wrote a paper about it that has now changed the world because it led to what we know as the large language model, the transformer. And the internet and all these other technologies were developed by DARPA and the military and then turned public once the military had a better version that they use that we don't get on. But LLM did kind of just fall out of a lab and it was mistaken for a useless thing, and now it's where it is. So it's had a weird journey for the last 15 years.
Well, this obviously gives a lot of data and background. I'm not reading slides to people. They can read them on their own.
But this is accurate for now. And what I'd say to people what I say to my customers are professors, and they're professors from departments like sustainability, geography, English, literature, music, art, physics. They all have a very different take on this. That all of them have problems and questions about AI, and they each have kind of questions from their perspective. This is a super complicated problem that is going to require a multifaceted solution. And I think the real issue is that right now these numbers are accurate. In 3 or 5 years, some of this will have gotten better, some of it will have gotten worse. As it points out here, AI efficiency is rapidly improving. AI takes something like 15% of the energy to answer a question that it did 2 years ago. It's already vastly more efficient than it was, but it's also answering more questions per hour and more people are using it. And we're about to head into a world of agents of AI, which means we have figured out that you can just have the AI split itself into multiple instances. So maybe me talking to GPT is less energy than Netflix by far. But what if I talk to 10 of them at once and they're all doing stuff? Then I'm catching up. I'm now using as much energy as if I was doing streaming video, which is a lot. Streaming video is resource intensive. So I'm tempted always to say it's not that bad and it's not that big a deal and you're exaggerating. And that's true for now. But in a couple of years, these sort of doomsday predictions could become real if we don't focus on doing this the right way and expanding, scaling in a responsible and environmentally friendly and society friendly way.
And one article I read said that energy was 2% of the total economy, and that with these these server farms are increasing the total energy use of the nation by about 1%. That it's going to go
Yeah,
from 2% of the total to 3% of the total of the economy. So that's significant. That's
that's
50% increase.
that's that's a monumental amount of energy.
Yeah,
We're a big place with 330 million people. And as we learned in COVID, the hospitals can handle 1% of us getting sick. If 2% of us get sick, the hospitals are overwhelmed immediately.
right.
And it's a little bit like that. Like Texas has power outages almost every year because their grid can barely sustain the way they're building, what they're doing. And if they see that much of an increase, it could just break them. And they know this, but
Yeah.
um, they'd rather free market their way through it, which is, messy, than lay down some rules for everybody to follow, which would probably be better. California will probably be more stable in their scaling of this, but it'll be more expensive to do it there.
Well, and here it points out that a lot of these companies like Google and Microsoft are trying to be better corporate citizens in how they create their server farms and things. But at the same time that's happening, our federal government is de-emphasizing
Yeah.
wind and solar farms and the very things that we want to see more of in the interpretive field because we're environmentally committed.
Yeah, this is an extraordinarily deregulatory federal administration. Amongst 100 other complaints we won't get into, their position on AI, as a person who's worked with it every day for 3 years, and I like the technology, I enjoy it, and I found some truly wholesome and wonderful uses for it in my life. I think it's crazy to not regulate it. It needs guide rails. People need protection from it. The environment needs protection from reckless expansion. It's crazy that we're not legislating it to me.
Well, and I see that just in the way we do business in the United States and the world in general, that our ethical constraints on what we do don't evolve as fast as our technological skill and innovation. So we create things that literally our uh, ethics folks can't possibly keep up with the conversation when they don't know what scientists in some techno lab are creating. Uh, it's going to pop out and we're going to see the results of it. And then we sit back and try to discuss,
Yeah.
do we need regulation for this? Should we have developed it in the first place? All of these kind of pie in the sky questions. This graphic, by the way, I mean, it gives you an idea if you're thinking about CO2, our raising meat for food and flying in airplanes and driving cars
Yeah.
greatly outstrips our kind of entertainment and technological uses of tools like AI. And
Yeah.
we don't think about that much that, just the fact that we use cars part of the time for essential needs, and almost all of us use it part of the time for entertainment, vacations, going for a drive. Just gas is quite expensive.
Yes, and going up, and doesn't look like it's going to come down anytime soon. And we sort of go through this. Every new technology goes through this a little bit. The internet, social media, video games went through this. Electric cars have been going through this, and at the moment, electric cars are kind of taking a big punch. The federal government has decided not to subsidize federal cars, or electric cars, but to continue to subsidize the oil industry. Not very free market again. And I look at this chart and I see my beloved cheeseburger at the top of it. And I think, we should strive to do better with all of these things. But it makes me think about how AI is new, and new things. Sometimes we think we can just stamp it out and uninvent it. That's never happened, but sometimes we think we can. And AI is rapidly expanding. So that scares us. It was nothing 3 or 4 years ago, and now it's everywhere. And then the economic and employment impact. AI can make people more efficient at their jobs, which means your job might not hire an extra person. So then there's one less job being posted online. It could lead companies to think, so far, many of them have been wrong when they thought, I'll just fire my marketing department and let ChatGPT do it. They usually end up backtracking that, but that does happen, and those people are still out of a job in the meantime.
Did you not point out to me that one of the things that happened was when the AI bubble expanded rapidly right before the pandemic, these big companies hired incredible quantities of elec
Yeah.
electrical engineers, software coders, that sort of thing. And that post-pandemic, they laid off
Yeah,
huge numbers of them.
chronologically reverse that. The COVID happens. We panic because all of a sudden no one's going out to eat, no one's going to the movies.
Right.
All of my band gigs are canceled. I lost all my music income. Not that it was an amazing amount, but I noticed it. And all like so much of life on Earth had to stop for about a year and a half. And
Right.
that crushed the economy. And so the government, the federal government, the banks and everything tried to kind of goose it a little bit by offering, cheap 0% loans, and big tech bit on those really hard, hired, you know, um, hundreds of thousands of people at Google and Microsoft and Meta and all these different places, and they've been firing them because they've realized that they overhired during the pandemic. And so that happens in 2020, they're overhiring. In 2022, 23, they are starting to cut hundreds of thousands of people per year from tech. 2023, ChatGPT comes along and makes everybody mad. And now those companies are more than happy for AI to take the blame, but they've fired 600,000 people in the last 3 years, and they're not replacing those people with AI. They're replacing them with nothing because they overhired. And the public is going to blame AI for that joblessness, but that's not really related to what happened.
Probably coding specialists are the most threatened jobs in our nation now because many of these AI platforms code
Yeah.
accurately, quickly. Is that reasonable to say?
They are individually, they are incredibly empowered by the technology. These are my best friends for 30 years, the coders. I worked in IT all that time. I was never that good of a coder myself, but I know many of them personally, very good friends of mine. And they are all coding with Claude now. And they
Yeah.
are all 10 times more productive than they were 2 years ago. They can just make an app 10 times faster because they have the knowledge, the training, and the experience to oversee this incredible little worker bee that is Claude. So individually, AI is incredibly empowering for coders, but overall, because it's making every coder 10 times more productive, there's going to be a decrease in jobs for coders. And we've been telling people at my school for 30 years, be a coder, go take a math class, take a computer programming class. It's a industry where you're almost guaranteed to get a job, and that has flipped overnight. The CEO of NVIDIA is like, don't go learn coding. Well, we've been saying that for 30 years. This is a very abrupt change for people who've spent tens of thousands of dollars individually on a degree and years in it for you to suddenly go, oh, right as you're about to graduate, the bottom fell out of that market. So it's a mix of blessing for those that are using it and devastation for the incredibly competitive job market everyone's going to be entering into.
Well, again, this is just particular slide is just more data about comparing active use. I think the funny thing to me is that as soon as I do anything with I create a bunch of things that require me to improve them not using AI. For instance, it will write a paragraph on a slide, and I'll go, it's too many words, and some of the words are too big for the audience that's going to read them. And I'm back editing. I'm not really using the AI resource of that
Yeah.
particular platform. I'm just simply editing. And so uh, I don't ever use AI even an hour a day, and yet that's what I ask for a comparison to. And yet I use it quite a lot. And I use Claude, ChatGPT, Gamma Dot app, and I
Mhm.
occasionally dabble with some of the other graphic platforms, but really not much. These are the most useful to me. Stealing water from farmers, really true in some places, right?
Well, it does use water and electricities. Stealing is if you don't like golf, and I don't like golf, you
Yeah.
could say that water that goes to a golf course is stealing because it doesn't benefit me. No one needs it to live. It's a recreational thing, and AI is at least partly recreational. I'd say the vast majority of users right now are just using it for fun, for curiosity, or for enjoyment. Some people are using it for work, but I think the vast majority of people are just kind of chatting.
Well, and we have the whole thing. Stealing water has become a thing for the last 200 years because you may not remember this, but when we lived in Pueblo, Colorado, we owned 18 shares of ditch water, and that's for irrigation. And they're quite valuable. They were worth several $1,000s per share back then. And part of what was going on in Colorado is when someone would say, I'm putting my ditch shares up for sale that I've used to irrigate an alfalfa farm or to grow corn or whatever, it would get purchased by the gravel industry or by one of the other industrial uses, and or it would get purchased by a community that would tie it up for domestic water use, and it's no longer available to the farmer to grow a crop. And in much
Yeah.
of Colorado, you don't grow those crops if you don't have trapped water.
Mhm.
Now, overlay on that the environmental concern that global climate change is causing us to have deficits of water in a lot of the American West on every other year or whatever basis. So we're talking about it right now in California and the West Coast. So it's a concern.
Some of this powerful, potent pushback on AI is thanks to 40 years of people lying to us about climate change, acting like it's a hoax, like it's not real, like pollution doesn't really affect us. Of course it does. We have, 50 or 60 years of very solid evidence, and we've been just sort of prevented from fixing a problem we believe we could fix. So AI is like the straw that broke the camel's back on environmental issues, I think. I think, your life's goal has been to get people to care, and you've succeeded, but you've also failed in that there's tons and tons of people that still don't care and don't take the issue seriously. So I think that's probably the part of the reason you get such spicy pushback from your own people is they're so frustrated at being ignored when they have absolutely confirmed evidence that we need to fix this and we could fix it.
I have both empathy for their feelings about all that, and then I have this desire for us to look deeper into the question because if AI tools let me contact more people efficiently, produce better interpretive experiences that engage people and get them to care, then I don't want to stay away from the technology. I want to know it better. And then I have to add for someone who has a really radical view of this, if you think of it, AI as the enemy, don't you want to know more about it?
Yeah.
Because everybody you're going to hire as a new hire, everybody you're going to talk to, there's going to be a high
Yeah.
percentage of users in your audience, in your
Yeah.
employees, in your
Mhm.
family. Don't you want to know more so that you at least know what the discussion is about?
We have a little more clear-cut answer for this at the school because our primary thing we do is teach student. We teach and we research. And research benefits from AI because it helps you write little apps, and there's a million different ways that it just helps research a little bit. And for our students, we know that they're going to go into a job market that is going to ask them. They're going to be asked in job interviews, do you know how to use this AI? We use this AI, we use this. They're going to the private sector. They need to know about it. They have to have some competence with it. If they walk into, if they think they're going to go out and be an accountant or a lawyer or whatever, anything out in the world and go, no, I don't touch that stuff ever, you're not going to get the job. And you're going to struggle because of that choice. And we can't let our students out the door without at least talking to them. Of course, we talk about ethics first. We talk about the resource management issues. We talk about all of it. We want them to know the good and the bad. But for us, it's pretty simple. It's adapt or die kind of situation.
This slide points out that not all companies report their water or energy use. So that gets
Most
back
don't.
into this thing that there are some companies are really aware of the criticism based on environmental issues and are doing something responsibly about it. And some of them are just trying to get that server farm built as fast as they can go. So it's a complicated
There,
issue.
if people want to hear it, sometimes people aren't ready to hear. But if I can convince them that this is a very nuanced issue, that some AI companies are behaving well, some are behaving bad, some are being rotten, some are being good citizens. Then they say, what are some good examples? Like how you mentioned earlier, how will AI help us become more efficient, help us with environmental issues? There was I pulled up the search for it. Orbital was trying to resurface the roofs of data centers with a carbon absorbing material so that the very place that you were worried about having a huge carbon footprint would help it a little bit to try and offset this. And they weren't having that much success, and they actually used an AI and put in all the data about everything they'd studied about it. And the AI, they asked the AI for suggestions of molecules and materials that they would build this out of, and it found something useful, and they're going forward with it. So there's an example of a human idea and a human problem, and AI assisting them in solving its own issues. So it reminds me a lot of generally climate change in that we know it's a problem, we know what to do, we're just not doing it.
Well, this points out some of the verified sources that this material was pulled from. Um, I think one of the things you can do is you can use uh, AI itself to do research about it. The interesting thing is that AI is sycophantic, which is both a good thing and a bad thing. It it means it tries to please you, it attempts to answer your question. That's a good thing. And if you tell it to get verified sources, you can go back and look up its source, see whether it's true or not. The bad thing about it is if it can't find a source, it may make one up. And we talk about that in all of
Yeah.
our training. So
No,
this
if
is,
if when we get your people to dip a toe into this world, when they're being patient and curious enough to learn a little bit about this, the first thing we say is, okay, now you have to watch it like a hawk. You have to be in charge. You have to stay on top of things.
and this slide just points out that these are some of the more ethical. I'm not going to put a slide up of denigrating companies that I don't really know enough about, but seem to be the ones that aren't doing as good a job. But these are the
Yep.
ones that have a very visible effort in place to do a better job. Microsoft, Google, um, Salesforce, the Mark
Yep.
Benioff organization out of San Francisco. Of course, Bezos is the Amazon uh, backing, and it's in both places, Bezos Earth Fund and
What's
Amazon AWS.
what's frustrating is these same folks will donate to political causes or representatives that are against doing anything about climate change. I think it's the climate hoax or whatever. They'll gladly donate to that person. But you know what Jeff Bezos believes because he's invested hundreds of $1 millions in solar and wind because he needs it to run his data centers. He knows it's good. He knows it's valuable. And this is sort of the point that we like to drive home to these people is they're going to use it. If you don't, then you're just at a disadvantage. And you're not teaching them a lesson because they don't need you to use it for it to be valuable to them. It's going to be used by others no matter what you do.
Well, we've discussed this major issue related to environmental concerns about AI. I want to end for the day, but I do want to have one final quick conversation, and that gets at the whole thing about AI is co-opting the work of artists, of writers, of innovators of all different kinds. It's it's simply taking their work and using it, and we're kind of losing. This is an issue for interpreters because many of them feel like I'm involved in a creative, educational, communication activity, and I don't want to steal the work of others, and yet
Yeah.
I want to do creative things that hopefully inspire people to be better stewards of the earth.
I take those complaints very seriously. It is like the computer coders. The existence of image AI is going to cut into digital artists and graphic designers' work. The field, some people are going to use AI rather than pay an artist. It's going to happen with music. It's going to happen with offices. It's going to happen with a lot of white collar jobs. The only kind of counter and also potential comfort I have is that we've done this before. And all the things that are being said about image AI right now, that it's the death of art, that it takes no skill, that no one will ever paint again, those exact things, word for word, were said about photography. And then again about Photoshop and digital art in the early 2000s. I love Photoshop. I'm crap at it, but I enjoy the tool and I think it takes some skill to use it. But when it first came out, it was considered a threat to art. It was, you don't have any skill if you're doing that. Well, it's not as easy as you think. And getting quality results with generative AI is not not always very reliable.
Yeah.
And if anything, from what I've seen, the digital artists that have embraced it, they have a 50-step process, and AI becomes one or two of those steps. And Photoshop is 10 of those steps, and hand drawing is some of those steps. So, like the coders, the ones who embrace it are empowered by it, and the ones who ignore it will never know exactly how much income per month or work or connection AI costs them, but it'll cost them.
We offer these seminar workshop combos of 3 hours about every 6 to 8 weeks. We are
Watch out.
putting up another date for our next seminar. If you'd like to come to one of these, they're $40. They're 3 hours, and we'll answer the questions as best we can. Toby is the expert. I use it in a lot of interpretive approaches to communication, so I can help you figure out why it might be an advantage in interpretation. He can answer the hard questions about what's it doing environmentally and socially and in a lot of other ways, because he deals with this with professors all day long, every day. If you have questions, don't hesitate to contact us by email. I'll put up our addresses as well. And thank you for joining us today. And I look forward to seeing you down the road, either in an interpretive training course or in an AI course. Go to interpretivetraining.org and you'll see what we have offered